That's great. We've started recording.
Brilliant, thank you. So welcome to this guide to the University of Oxford and the application process for families. Fantastic that you've joined us all here this evening. Do a quick round of introductions. My name is Hannah Rolly. I am the Head of Access at Trinity College and I oversee Schools Outreach Programme here across Oxfordshire, Milton Keynes and the north east of Oxford. Just a little bit about me. I've been working at the university for the last 10 years and time really does fly. Prior to that, I was a secondary school teacher working in schools in Oxfordshire, actually. And I also went to school in Oxfordshire, so I'm an Oxford person, and I've taught in the schools across the county. Also taught in schools in Milton Keynes and Bedfordshire. I didn't actually go to the University of Oxford until I was a postgrad, and actually hadn't really even set foot inside of Oxford until I came to work here 10 years ago. I'm also a parent of 3 young people who are past the age of applying to university. I've been where you have sat, both as a parent, but also as a teacher who was learning about how to support young people. So really hopeful this session is going to be of help for you tonight. Innocent, I'm just going to come to you to introduce yourself.
Brilliant. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Innocent and I work closely alongside Hannah in Oxford, looking after the schools in Oxfordshire and Milton Keynes, but also really closely with Richard, who's further up north. But like Hannah, I grew up in Oxford, studied in Oxford, come from an education background insofar as I was a teacher prior to this role of mine, and also have a daughter. So she's not quite at university age yet, but not massively far off. But what I can appreciate from this place is actually the application process. Did my postgraduate study here, so I can appreciate the lengthy and kind of detailed process that some of you might be considering right now. But very excited to be here today, and we'll hopefully not kill you by death by information, but we will leave you very informed. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you. I'm Richard. I'm also part of the team working in state schools in our other link region, which is North East England, which is where I come from originally, although as with the rest of the team, also being a teacher, I actually started my teaching career in Oxfordshire at what is now the Bicester School. So fond memories of being in Oxfordshire as a teacher as well. Yeah, delighted to join you tonight. It's a really packed session. Back to Hannah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Innocent. And we're also joined this evening by some of our current undergraduate ambassadors who are studying courses whilst living and being supported at the college, Trinity College. So I'm just going to ask them to pop on their cameras and mic so that they can also introduce themselves. So I think I can see, let's have a little look. Who is that? I think it might be, is this Kelly that I can see? Kelly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kelly. I've just finished year 2 in Trinity College and I study classics and English.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kelly. And if I come to Isla.
Hello, hi, I'm Isla. I've just finished 3rd year of medicine at Trinity. And yeah, I'm starting clinical medicine next year.
And I think I will come to Morgan. Morgan, are you with us?
Yes, hi, I'm Morgan. I've just finished my 2nd year of biomedical sciences, also at Trinity College.
And thank you. Is that everyone from our ambassador team this evening, or are we joined by a couple of others? I think that might be everyone. Okay. So our ambassadors will be picking up your questions and answering them. They are doing that via slido.com this evening. So hopefully you were able to spot that on your email invitation. You can head over there now. We'll be using that for polls. this evening so that you can interact with us and just let us know your reflections and thoughts. It's a really good place to pop any questions that you would like answered as we're moving through the session. So do head over there now, and our current students and also the team, when we're not presenting, will try and pick up some of those questions. Your pre-submitted questions have also been added to Slido, so hopefully our ambassadors and the team will be working their way through those in real time, so you can pick up the answer to those questions. Hopefully we'll try and address some of the more generic ones relating to admissions as we move through that. You can also put questions in the chat. We'll try and come to those, and there'll be time at the end of this evening's session for Q&A, where we'll put your questions to our students and ask some of those more generic questions about admissions and the experience of Oxford. So this evening then, the aims of this session is simply to increase your awareness of the distinctive features of studying at the University of Oxford. So we're going to be talking about the collegiate and the tutorial systems, quite different here compared to other universities, although quite similar to Cambridge. Hopefully we're going to help increase your knowledge and understanding about the application process, its stages and deadlines. And really, one of our core aims is just to help you feel more confident about your role in supporting your young person's application to the University of Oxford if they go ahead and submit this October. One thing we are not going to do is the kind of technical advice and guidance that we might offer to your young people's teachers, partly because your teachers in your young people's schools will be doing that work with your young person. And actually, we don't want to overwhelm you. We think there are some very specific, easy ways that you can support your young person. And we're going to really guide you and really just show you what is for you, what is the job for your young person to do, and what is actually the role of school. So you can just feel a bit more confident that you're definitely not doing too much, and you're definitely not doing too little either. So having said, we are going to go to a poll. I think I'm going to hand over to Innocent, and she's going to invite you to head on over to Slido.
Yes, brilliant. So just before we launch into things, it's always really helpful just to see how we're all feeling and kind of where our thoughts are in terms of supporting your young person. So we are going to encourage you to go over to Slido and help us populate this poll by responding to the question, how do you currently feel about the prospect of supporting your young person to possibly apply to Oxford University? Okay, so no more than 2 or 3 words. If you can just go to Slido and share your thoughts and feelings with us, that would be brilliant. And then we can kind of use that as a guide as we move through as well. Richard, can I trouble you just to share that poll on the screen, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Here we go.
Brilliant. Yeah,
A mix. It's nice to see that excited is the dominant one.
absolutely.
But as we often feel, and I think it's worth reassuring on that note, as we often see when we ask this question, quite a lot of trepidation, anxiety, daunted is quite a common thing that we hear.
Yeah,
Worried. We understand that. Innocent.
absolutely. We've got some great ones. Baffled, intimidated. I think all of that is completely understandable. Proud, absolutely. You should be so proud that your young person is getting ready to kind of flee the nest and go to university. Absolutely. Optimistic and hopeful. There was one that's kind of does background matter? That's really, really interesting. And there is definitely lots of assumptions around the background of our students. So we'll definitely be covering that in a lot more detailed later on. But I think overwhelmingly you are all feeling quite excited with a heavy dose of worried and uncertain. All of the things that we are going to definitely work on addressing as we move through the course of this talk. So hopefully you'll be feeling slightly less daunted. There will be a lot of information, but a chance for you also to ask some clarifying questions and kind of make sure that you leave here fully armed and equipped to support your young person as best as possible. Thank you, Richard. I will share the presentation again. Could I trouble Hannah, could I get you to share the presentation again, please? Sorry.
Sure, we'll just do that for you now. And You can select take control as you move forward and share. So I'm just going to upload that now. I'll just take a few seconds to do that. So just really interesting. I think we all felt like that when our young people were making decisions, whether it was GCSE choices or A levels, or indeed even what school to go to. So this is a very big next step as they sit on the precipice of deciding which universities to apply to. And just as Innocent was saying there, just really exciting to be thinking about the 5 universities that they'll get to choose, hopefully including the University of Oxford as one of those. Hopefully we'll address all of the worries and concerns that you might feel about this big decision as we work through this talk this evening. So it would just takes a second to upload.
Thank you all for your patience. I think that the technology is feeling a bit like we are at the moment. Hot and bothered. There we go. Thank you so much, Hannah. Amazing. I'll just take control. Superb. Okay, so it is really helpful. Thank you for sharing those thoughts and feelings. And we are all going to do our best to address them as best as possible as we move through this presentation. Just want to encourage you once more to make sure that you go back to Slido and populate that area with any questions that arise as we move through this talk. And yeah, I'm just going to share a bit more information with you just now, but just to kind of lay the foundation in terms of Oxford University and give us a bit more of an understanding of where your young person might be coming in their next steps. So Oxford University has been ranked #1 in the world for the last 9 years running. So we are well renowned and are really at the forefront of leading as a leading centre for learning and for research. And so we have an enormous impact, not only in terms of output of research knowledge, but also research impact, which has real world impacts on the way that we're looking at environmental sciences and various other aspects of real world problems. And that means that when your young person comes to Oxford University, the people, the lecturers, the academic and the staff that they will be engaging with will be those who are really doing some seriously big things in the world, and they can essentially be a part of that as well. So it's a very exciting and dynamic place to be a part of. So if you're somebody who's shared daunting, please don't let that add to that feeling. It's actually really exciting. It means that when your son or daughter or young person comes here, they're going to be around some seriously fantastic people. Richard, am I handing over to you at this point?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Nice.
One of the things that may be part of that daunting feeling, and maybe wondering where a degree at Oxford or indeed other universities might lead, we very much see it as part of our role to enable students to build up their confidence in making those decisions about career decisions when they're with us. Careers services at universities are light years from where they were a couple of decades ago, I would say. We might be biased, but we think the one at Oxford's particularly good in terms of being student-centered and giving them all sorts of opportunities. We're going to talk about subject choices later and where certain subjects may lead professionally. Lots of our students at Oxford go on to further study, not quite a majority, but lots of them. But it's our role, part of our role, to equip students that if they wish to take a job on leaving their 3 or 4 year degree, that they feel ready. They've got the tools to make those decisions. They've met the people. They've had opportunities to do internships locally or in their own countries. They've been introduced to great employers. They attend really useful careers fairs at which fantastic employers also really want to attend because they want to meet Oxford graduates because they recognise the skills that Oxford graduates are being equipped with. It's a really core part of a university's purpose as far as the government and society is concerned, equipping our workforce for future skills. Lots of work experience as well. It's worth saying that whilst work experience on the way into Oxford, part of admissions, is useful, and certainly sort of exposure to a healthcare environment is useful for those who are proposing to study medicine. Actually, work experience of students, school students, isn't something we look at really as part of the application process. But we do provide work experience opportunities, or at least we act as a broker between students and great employers who offer them. In financial terms, and we will also be talking other non-financial benefits of being at university and of being at Oxford specifically. In financial terms, biased as we may be, we think it is a worthwhile investment. To explain and to substantiate that comment, essentially graduates on average from UK universities, and indeed particularly University of Oxford, because it's sitting right at the top of the earnings tables in terms of average earnings, earn significantly more than people who haven't been to university on average. To emphasize that, we all are aware of people who haven't been to university who earn a fortune, and perhaps of people who've been to university who earn a relatively modest wage. But in terms of on average, the financial benefits are significant, and the financial differential outweighs generally the cost of debt as well on average. I think I've emphasized that on average thing enough now. There's high employability of top tier universities, and Oxford's right at the top of that in terms of we are assessed by this quite rightly. Employment after 6 months, for example, or average earnings. And we are monitored on this as well as part of our agreement in terms of charging tuition fees. It's all part of how government regulate universities. It's really important there's the information out there for students to make these decisions. But there are other non-financial benefits as well. And Innocent's going to talk now about how fun Oxford can be.
Brilliant, thanks, Richard. And so absolutely, there is a lot of fun to be had here at Oxford. Oxford is a really young, energetic city with lots of fun things that your young person will be able to engage with. It's important to note that, of course, your young person will be coming to university with the purpose of working, and there will be an enormous academic demand and expectations associated with their studies here at Oxford University. On average, we recommend that students will be spending something in the region of 40 hours per week on their studying, and that may vary, and that will be made up of lots of different kind of contact points. But aside from those 40 hours of diligent working, there is time to have fun as well. And we really encourage our students to be a part of some of the societies and clubs that we have available here. We actually have over 400 societies and clubs at Oxford University, which include but are not limited to Blind Tasting Society, Tea Appreciation Society, AI, Salsa, Fashion, filmmaking, and so many more. And the idea is just that it's a great chance for your young person to embark on this really exciting but big step, but also to find a way to continue to feed into their current interest, but also embark on some new interests as well. And so that they will meet lots of people who are like-minded, who also like similar things to them. And we always say that if they come here and they find that there isn't really something that speaks to them, then there is an opportunity for them to create a new society as well. And it's nice that actually we have that type of environment, and that's an option for your students. But also what they'll be building along the way will be some really fantastic and important life skills, and we'll be able to kind of flourish in a way that's steeped and really supported, so that for you as parents, you can be quite reassured that when they leave your care and come to university, they are going to have a lot of support here. They're going to be learning to engage with these different societies and clubs and people, and they'll be slowly and quickly becoming independent and self-reliant and resilient, and developing all these amazing skills that they will be able to carry forward with them. In addition to that huge range of the clubs and societies that I mentioned, there are also other activities that your young person can be a part of. It's helpful to note that actually the terms that we have here at Oxford University are very short. We have an 8-week term, and that happens in 3 cycles, and then that makes up a year of your young person's academic studies. And so within that 8-week period, they have the opportunity to, of course, do their learning, but to engage with those societies and be a part of sporting clubs. It could be that they enter university with some interest, sporting interests they're already a part of. It could be that they want to explore something completely new and different, and we definitely encourage that. There's also an opportunity to be involved in things like theatre shows and debating clubs, and just to find new and different interests that they might want to move towards. And so it's a really fun and exciting time to be a student. And these opportunities will be widely available at other universities. But speaking from an Oxford perspective, we have got a lot of things here that your young person can be a part of. Hey, Hannah, I think I'm handing over to you at this point.
So who goes to Oxford then? Well, Oxford students, just like any other university, they come from all over the world and from all kinds of backgrounds. I know that one of the questions there sort of suggested, does background matter? We do take into account background, because what we're looking to ensure is that every background is properly represented, fairly represented at the university. We are really aiming to ensure that everybody who comes here, that Oxford is a realistic goal for anyone from any background with an academic talent and commitment for their learning. The one thing that all students have in common, wherever they are from, is that commitment to their subject and a talent for studying. So what we say is no matter who you are, if you are interested in a subject or a course that we have on offer here at the University of Oxford, we want you to apply. There is absolutely no blueprint for the ideal Oxford student. So we are looking for academic ability and potential. We look at that in relation to your young person's prior attainment, so their GCSE results, within the context of their own educational background. So we know that not all young people have had the same opportunities. So we are looking at that to ensure that there is a level playing field. We'll look at predicted A-level grades. We will look at their personal statement, which we're going to talk about in a little while, the teacher reference, the admissions test, which we'll also cover, and of course the academic interview, which we'll also talk about this evening. What we're looking for is a good match between the student and the course that they have applied for. So we're looking for that subject enthusiasm, any supercurricular engagement in the subject area of the degree that they're applying for, and the skills and qualifications that they have on entry. We're also looking for, thinking about those distinctive features, we're looking for someone who has a learning style that suits our environment. And by that, we're referring specifically to the tutorial style teaching, which is a really fundamental part of the Oxford experience. We're also looking for a truly, truly diverse student body, which reflects modern society. And we know that we are essentially looking for students with the greatest talent for studying their subject, whatever their background. So we are becoming ever more diverse and ever more representative, and have come a long way in the last 10 years, with the majority of our student population coming from state schools. Let's have a little look then. This is what our students think is important. Sometimes we'll talk a lot about entry criteria in relation to predicted grades and GCSEs, but actually there are some of those qualities that we think are absolutely essential. Our students explain that actually it's their enthusiasm, and I think our tutors would agree. Enthusiasm, positivity, ability to work hard, their determination, curiosity, and self-motivation. That's definitely what our students think, and it's certainly what our tutors would agree is going to be important. In terms of the distinctive features then, well, Oxford is a very distinctive university. In some cases very similar to lots of different universities, but we are a collegiate university at a city campus. Innocent, I think I'm going to hand over to you.
Amazing. Thank you, Hannah. And so understanding Oxford within the context of how it functions is a really interesting process, even if you work inside of Oxford. And so Oxford, as Hannah mentioned, is a collegiate university, and that just means that we are made up of lots of different colleges. And so today we are joining you from Trinity College, and we are one of 30 colleges that your young person can potentially apply for when thinking or considering Oxford University as their possible destination. And so how does it function then? So firstly, we are a city campus. So all those colleges are dotted in Oxford city centre and very close to one another. But actually we have the Central University that oversees really important aspects of the university, and the colleges that function quite independently, similar in some ways, but also very different in others. And so whilst the Central University is responsible alongside departments for things like setting the course content and structures and the various courses that we offer, they are also responsible for things like the lectures, the seminars, and the lab work that your young people will be taking part in. They will be the ones who set and mark the exams that your young people sit. And irrespective of whatever college your young person ends up going to, their degree will come from the University of Oxford. So they're responsible for awarding those degrees at the end of a degree programme. In addition to that, they are the ones who help provide student services such as the counselling and the career services that Richard mentioned earlier. Now, the college functioned in a slightly different way. It can be viewed as a halls of residence, so other universities will normally have halls of residence that students will live in that first year, and thereafter they'll then move on. At Oxford University, we all have the college provides, accommodation for our students in similar ways, but also differently. At Trinity, we try to make sure that our students are given a place to stay for the duration of their studies. And it means that actually the college plays a really important function. It's like a community and absolutely their home. It's where they'll have their meals and do things like their laundry and have different kind of social spaces that they can interact with their friends and kind of find a moment to breathe outside of their learning as well. At the college, we are responsible for providing pastoral care. This is really important. We'll definitely touch on this a bit more later on. So this idea that, as Hannah mentioned, we also do have tutorials. Now, these tutorials will take place in college. And so it's normally part of the college it's normally up to the college, to organise these tutorial teaching organisations. Beyond that, we also offer support in terms of personal and academic support for our students. We're really mindful that actually this journey or the step up to university is huge, and that they will naturally need some help to transition from sixth form into kind of university. So thinking about how do they write assignments, how do they approach these tutorials, there will be support on hand to make sure that they have that. So they're not just kind of being dropped and expected to do everything by themselves. They will be really well supported along that journey, and the college plays an instrumental role in making sure that that happens. Also, very importantly, as a college, we are responsible for selecting or admitting the students that then apply and offering them those places. So we'll touch a bit more on that later on. But when we think about Oxford University and it being a collegiate system, that's kind of how it works. So it's the university being the overarching umbrella, and the college then being this kind of really nice community setting that brings things down to a human kind of level and makes it a lot more personable and creates a really safe community environment for your young person. And what that means is, as a student who studies at the university, your young person will belong to the college. They will also belong to their department, and as well as a university. So there's just lots of streams of support, of help, and also kind of resources that they can access as part of their learning journey. Hopefully that made sense. I appreciate that that's a lot to take in with one slide. So please do feel free to populate any the Slido forum with any further questions. And I think, Hannah, I'm going to be handing back to you now.
Yeah, you are. I'm just going to pick up on that little question there in the speech bubble. Are there harder colleges to get into? It's important to explain that if you are applying to study a course at the University of Oxford, the entry criteria for that course is exactly the same, no matter which college your young person lives at. So whilst they apply to study the course through the collegiate system, there are no harder or easier colleges to get into. They all have exactly the same entry requirements, because essentially your young person is applying to study their degree at the department whilst living at the colleges. And this is a way of ensuring that every single person who applies to the University of Oxford has accommodation when they arrive. Are there different entry requirements? Just to reiterate, no, really there aren't. No hard, no easier colleges to get into. It's also worth noting that different colleges may have slightly different facilities and services that are available at Trinity College. You can have a little look online to see exactly what support and resources and facilities are available at all of the colleges. But of course, your young person doesn't need to put in an application to one college. You can pop in an open application. So learning at Oxford then, Oxford is famous for offering one of the best educations in the world. It's got a big emphasis on independent study. Students have got individual access to world-class academic experts and specialists, and this may be just like any other university in the form of lectures, seminars, classes. If they're scientists, it might be laboratory work, carrying out experiments, and then, of course, what we refer to as tutorials. Sometimes you may think, oh, how is that similar to Cambridge? Well, at Cambridge, those tutorials are referred to as supervisions, but they are exactly the same thing, and they are central to the teaching at Oxford. Really, there aren't other universities aside from Cambridge that offer this opportunity. This is very small group, weekly tutorial teaching. They are compulsory, they are on everybody's timetable, and this is where typically small groups of 2 or 3 students come together to work with their tutor, and they discuss a topic or piece of work in depth. It's a really distinctive system, and it means every student at Oxford has the chance to meet with an expert or a specialist in their field of study approximately once a week. It really does depend on their subject. So those that are studying joint courses may have 2 or 3 tutorials a week, but essentially this is where the work that they prepare for, the weekly essays or the task sheets, are completed in advance and handed in to their tutor. It's where they get their feedback, and it's where they discuss their ideas in depth, and they get that rigorous, challenging, constructive criticism. So they learn to face those academic challenges. They learn to present and defend their opinions, to accept constructive criticism, to listen to others, and to think for themselves, something that's really, really important. Tutorials encourage and facilitate really individualised learning in a way that just isn't possible in a lecture. And tutors can also provide additional academic support if a student needs it. What else is available? Well, at the University of Oxford, we've already mentioned at the start of this presentation, there are really world-class facilities. Well, what are they? There are over 100 libraries at the University of Oxford. Every college has its own library for the exclusive use of the students who are members there. There are departmental libraries. There are around about 14 million printed items in the collections. This means that any time that a young person needs to borrow a book, this should be in the collection, and if it isn't, we will order it for them. It means that young people who study with us often do not have to buy a single book the entire time that they are here. So you can imagine that really does help keep the costs down. Students learn, if they're in the science subjects, in real life working laboratories with cutting edge technology and equipment. And of course, if they're studying a related subject, we have got the museums that are scattered across the city, often full of tourists, but actually they are also resources for students who are studying subjects like earth sciences or classics or natural sciences or archaeology or anthropology. And those are classrooms and resources for our students to learn from. Every college will have learning spaces that are quiet and away from the hubbub of the city campus, so that they can really get the full experience of being at Oxford with access to all of those resources. Richard, I think I'm going to hand over to you to talk about who looks out for them. Really important question for parents to know who is going to be looking after their young people when they come to us at Oxford.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Just also scribbling an answer on Slido. So many great questions coming in tonight. Thank you. Keep them coming. Just very timely because I'm just currently been writing about college choice. I think colleges, there are various benefits. I've just been mentioning that issue in a Slido response. There are many benefits of living in a college, the real communities, but I think an underestimated benefit of the college system for the universities that are collegiate is that essentially they offer us real opportunities to look after people pastorally that are often underrated, I think, in terms of the benefits of collegiate universities like Cambridge and Durham and Lancaster and York and Oxford. They're communities. They are ways, I suppose you could say, of breaking down, 25,000 students at the university into smaller communities, safe places. Often 20 of the 31 colleges that admit undergraduates are able to provide accommodation for the whole duration of a student's degree. But there are also places, as well as some academic learning will happen, for example, tutorials will happen within college, but they'll also happen at other colleges and around the university, not at the student's own college. The key benefit is the pastoral sort of supervision. There are people in colleges whose role it is to help look after people. Some differences in sizes, but all of them are united in having these sort of structures that can support students. Those structures also exist across the university. Disability advisory service, counselling service, student union led student advice. But it's really good having these college structures as well. Generally, for example, a college like Trinity, which I think has the second lowest numbers in terms of undergraduates, about 270 undergraduates at Trinity, although it's fortunate in that it's a large college physically in the centre of Oxford. With that relatively small community, for example, some people like the intimacy of that, sort of not necessarily knowing everybody in the undergraduate body, but kind of knowing perhaps who everybody is, like in a smaller school. And then some people prefer the larger sort of size of college as well, big fish in a little pond or little fish in a big pond, and so on. The general emphasis that we've already given, and I was also just typing into a Slido answer there, is don't look too much at a college choice in terms of like numbers and supposed or perceived competitiveness of getting into them. But that's just continuing. An answer on Slido there. I mentioned earlier the financial benefits of Oxford University and other top tier universities. One of the financial benefits is also given by the university's ability to support students financially. In brief, the national system for the UK government supporting students is essentially they will lend them the tuition fees, which are £9,535 a year. They are not means tested. They will lend everybody those tuition fees up front, so nobody has to pay them in terms of UK students who qualify. And then in addition to that, students are invited to apply for a certain amount of maintenance funding to support the cost of living. This will be higher if, for example, the student's living away from home, or if she's living in London, or if her course includes an element overseas. And also, crucially, the amount that she's invited to apply for will be higher if her household income is lower. Because if her household income is higher, it's deemed that parents and carers would be able to support a part of the. It's estimated to be about £10,500 the UK government assesses average living costs of students at universities, but these do differ and vary according to the circumstances, some of which are outlined there on that slide. So that's the national system. Put into repayment terms, the money that you've borrowed when you go through university, the tuition fees, and then the maintenance lending funding that you been provided with, they might become repayable. They become repayable essentially if you earn over a certain amount, and that amount at the moment is 25,000 on graduating. So unlike virtually all other forms of debt, student debt in the UK is based on one's earnings rather than on how much you've actually borrowed. It's estimated that UK students at the moment have borrowed on average something like £44,000 when they graduate. And of course, the average implies some have borrowed a lot less, some have borrowed more. But the key thing from our perspective and the difference of this debt is that they are only repaying that debt over a certain earnings threshold. So when you actually put them in sort of concrete figures, if you're earning, as that table shows you there, if you're earning, £30,000 at the moment, which is actually just under the average earnings on leaving Oxford at the moment, then you're paying something in the region of under £40 a month, which is not insignificant, but it's not as daunting sounding as the five-figure sums of debt can understandably absolutely sound like when you're hearing about them for the first time. In addition to that, universities like Oxford, Oxford particularly because of our age as a university, founded around about 1100, has accumulated some wealth over that time, those centuries, and it chooses to direct some of its wealth in terms of supporting students. And we deliberately and choose to support students financially and with bursaries, we call them, students whose household income is relatively low, rather than supporting everybody, for example, who's a UK student. UK students whose household income is relatively low, you can see that table, for example, £6,000 if you're earning, if the household income is sort of less than £30,000 typically. It's also quite an important sort of cornerstone of our work in terms of demystifying Oxford and saying how students come from all backgrounds, that 26% of our students are receiving this sort of financial support, 26% of our UK students. In other words, it's quite there's a lot of students at Oxford who would fit into that category and are receiving on an annual basis this pretty meaningful support. It's not a loan, it's a grant. It's given every year. It's not to be applied for in terms of, tell us why you're worthwhile extra funding in 100 words or something. It's on information supplied through Student Finance England on the way into university. So it's very accessible. It's why also the provision of accommodation is significant here. We actually think and can be quite happy to make the claim publicly that we think Oxford can be a lot less expensive than other universities, whereas for some people the perception is that it's more expensive if you're living away from home, that is, basically because of the provision of accommodation. You're paying accommodation if you're in a college for 24 weeks a year, 3 8-week terms. That college is subsidising your accommodation. It's not charging you for rent out in vacation times, in holiday times. And also it's providing you with accommodation in all likelihood for most of your degree, if not in the case of Trinity College, the whole of your degree. It's a significant difference to paying, a private landlord for 52 weeks a year. And it's worthwhile saying the colleges also provide lots of other subsidised sort of funding of, for example, food, particularly, which is really important generally to Trinity students' heart, and subsidising some opportunities for and travel grants, and making awards also available for particular needs as they arise on perhaps an ad hoc basis. We're going to move forward. We do have other information as well that you can access about the financial side of things, but we're going to move forward to the application process and a little bit more detail on that, for example, than was discussed in our session on Monday, for those of you who joined us for that. The application deadline for applying to Oxford is the early UCAS deadline. UCAS has 2 deadlines. That's the deadline by which the teams who support the students at schools and colleges send the student's application off to UCAS. The early entry deadline is 15th of October. And the latter deadline is the 14th of January next year in 2026. So if you're applying to Oxford or indeed Cambridge, or you're applying for subjects of medicine, dentistry, veterinary science nationally, you need to send off your UCAS application in that earlier deadline. Okay. Schools are typically launching their UCAS process now and enabling students to start making entries on the UCAS the portal and start filling in their application now. And most students finish them off in September if they're on that early entry deadline. We also do have, and we'll mention this later as well, an Astrophoria Foundation Year programme. Also has that later January 2026 deadline. This is for students who face who have faced particular challenges and specific circumstances, and that is a fully funded foundation year, even with living costs funded, for example, that their non-satisfactory completion of one of 4 courses, as noted there, leads to a full Oxford degree in 20 different courses. So an overview before we go into the depth. Course choice is always, we would say, probably first point of decision making, and the most important decision, absolutely. Certainly far more important than, say, choosing a college if you're applying to a collegiate university, including Oxford. We would also warmly encourage an open application. That's where your application's allocated to a college on the basis of relatively favourable ratio of applicants to places for that course, for that cohort. You then essentially submitting the UCAS application typically in late September, for instance, if you're on an early entry deadline, or early October. You also now, if you're applying to Oxford or Cambridge a bit later, if you're applying to Oxford, you need to now register for admissions tests if they are applicable to your course. You can find out more about that. We'll talk about that in due course as well. And those tests are actually sat in September or October, depending on which course it is. In November, we ask for written work for some courses, not all. We'll mention that again. And we'll also talk about the chronological culmination of the process, which is interviews for those whom we shortlist. They take place online in December. The chronological culmination, rather than, hugely more important than any other element. It's important to emphasize that. The time frame is then that the students, in Oxford's case, we tell them generally around the 10th of January every year, but we publish that date on a yearly basis. And then students typically January, February, March each year of year 13, they have all their decisions have come through from, in all likelihood, the 5 universities have applied for, and then they are invited to accept 2. 1 firm acceptance and 1 insurance acceptance. The firm acceptance is if they accept that university and they get the grade that university requires on results day. In current year 12's case, that will be August 2026. Then they have that place absolutely cemented and guaranteed at that university. If they achieve slightly lower grades, but within the insurance acceptance universities grade offer, then they will have that place guaranteed as well on results day. So that choice, all of these elements as outlined here, but also that choice of where to apply to, it is to an extent a strategic choice, and it's well worth a conversation between the person that's supporting your young person in school and your young person, in terms of choosing perhaps universities that come at different levels in terms of competitiveness, so that it's a kind of strategic package as choice of 5 universities, which is how many they're applying to. They're not just applying to 1. Hannah, course choices.
Excuse me, just over in Slido there, having a little look. So course choice then, yeah, we think no matter what, course choice is the most important decision that a young person would make. We talked about this on Monday, if you were with us then, where we were talking about the general support for young people applying to university, just the same at Oxford. And we're really looking for students who have really researched their course, have a real passion for their subject. Now is the time for your young person, particularly if they're in year 11 and year 12, to start thinking about what they want to do. Year 12 should be consolidating that decision. We know that young people change their mind all the way up to the point of application, and that's absolutely fine. Our students who are at the University of Oxford did that too. Most courses last at least 3 years at Oxford. Some will take 4 or 5, depending on whether they have a master's in built or whether they have some other element to the course content. We recommend that your young person thinks about whether they have a career in mind. Do they want to start at that point and work their way back? Or are they just interested in a particular subject, and at the moment they don't really know what they want to do? Important to know that courses at Oxford are very academic in nature. Just thinking about the way that we teach, big emphasis on independent learning, a huge amount of research, independent study, writing each week, even in subjects that you may think there isn't an essay, there often can be. I know that I've spoken to some of our biologists who were quite surprised that they were going to be writing essays, even in a science subject. We offer a rare level, as we've already talked about, the personalised teaching in tutorials from academic experts. And the teaching here also encourages that development of the independent study. So they need to think about their course. Are they going to love it enough? Do they love it academically in the way that we teach? Could they begin exploring a favourite subject that they're interested in? Are they interested in studying something entirely new? Could they study subjects, different subjects combined? Really depends on what they are interested in. Your young people will need to check out entry requirements for our courses. They need to meet those minimum entry requirements. We do look at GCSE grades and subjects, but we don't have a minimum number or a subject requirement. We look at them within the context of them and where they went to school. It helps us understand their potential and their prior attainment and what they're likely to achieve. We will look at A-level grades, so they need to make sure that they meet those minimum entry requirements in terms of their predicted grades in each of their subjects, and they may require a certain combination of A-level subjects. So it's going to be really up to them to be exploring that and checking out what those entry requirements are for the courses that they're interested in. All that information is available on our website. Obviously, we've got over 250 different courses at the University of Oxford. We don't have time to run through all the entry requirements for each of those courses this evening. So we just direct you and your young person to start having a look and begin exploring. It's worth noting that predicted A-level grades make a really significant difference to the courses that may be open to students. If they do not meet those minimum entry requirements, it's highly unlikely that we will take their application forward. So we really encourage them to think and research closely the subject that they want to study. At Oxford, our A-level entry requirements range from 2 A stars and an A to 3 A's for our standard entry courses, and 2 A's and a B to 3 B's for our Astrophoria Foundation degree, which is a wonderful opportunity for young people to come to Oxford who are not quite meeting those minimum entry requirements. Just mentioned this, 250 different courses available at Oxford in these subject areas. And again, just to remind you, courses are academic in nature. So all that independent study, that researching, that writing, and assessment is often by exam. These are the subject areas and not all the courses here, but we really encourage your young people, if they think they may be interested in earth sciences or law, material science, English language, literature, go and read those course descriptions. Not all courses at universities across the country, even if they have the same name, have the same content, so the experience can be quite varied. So again, just as I've said, once students have chosen a course, they need to make sure they've met or are on target to meet those minimum entry requirements. I think I may be handing over to Innocent to talk about personal statements in a moment, but just before I do that, we'll just cover off the Astrophoria Foundation year. This is a new course. It's only been out a couple of years. 50 places available across 4 courses under our foundation year: humanities, law, PPE, and the physical sciences in those subject areas. You can see the entry requirements, the predicted grades next to those 4 courses. Important to note that all applicants to this course must apply via the UCAS January deadline rather than October, so you have time to think about that. And this course is specifically for those that have got really high academic potential, but have experienced some severe personal disadvantage or disrupted education, which is why they're not quite meeting those standard entry A-level requirements. Exciting, no tuition fees, completely free, fully funded accommodation, a full bursary for living expenses for all students on these courses. Foundation year graduates will automatically progress onto year one of an Oxford degree upon successful completion of the year, and they'll receive a certificate in higher education qualification. Students don't have to automatically transfer onto year one. They can actually at that point take their certificate, and we'll support them to apply to a university of their choice. But we're really hopeful we would have persuaded most of the students to stay with us by then. Oh yes, we looked at this on Monday. I think I wanted to show you this because anybody who is worried about where their course might lead, perhaps they don't know what career they want to do yet and are worried that the subject that they're most interested in doesn't seem to have a natural pathway. So I wanted to just show you these destinations of students who studied one subject at the University of Oxford. If you were with us on Monday, you'll know the answer to this. Maybe you've forgotten. But it's just interesting to show you where they went. Many went into sport, leisure and tourism. Some stayed on in education, some went to media and journalism, IT, computing, charity development, consultancy, banking, engineering and manufacturing. Okay, so what subject did they all study at the University of Oxford? It was history. And sometimes our young people can be really worried about where they are going to end up if they study their chosen subject, their passion, even if there doesn't seem to be a natural career path for them. But just as Richard said, we have a fantastic, it is actually a world-leading career service where there are all sorts of opportunities for young people to go and take advantage of internships and work experiences that are exclusively for Oxford undergraduates, that sees them going into all of these industries, regardless of the subject they studied at university. So essentially, what we're saying is subject first before anything else, particularly if you don't have a career in mind. Obviously, if you are a medic, you're going to need to think about A-levels that you need and certain qualifications you're going to get in advance. But for others who are not quite sure, study what you love and then access the support once you're here to get into the careers that you are most interested in. We talked about this on Monday too. What subject shall I pick? When your young person is asking you or feeling confused, we get this question a lot when we're working in schools. Well, essentially we say, what are you good at? What are you most interested in learning about? We encourage you to just really explore this with them, encourage them to find out what they enjoy, remind them that 3 or 4 years is a long time to study something, so it is much better to enjoy it rather than grit teeth and go through it. But what job can I get with a degree in that subject? Well, we don't know yet, but we know that there are a huge amount of opportunities in many unrelated fields due to the transferable skills gained. Subject first, then seek guidance from career services later. Obviously, if a young person is thinking about a particular career in medicine or architecture, which is Cambridge, by the way, not Oxford, then they really need to be taking their degrees in those subject areas. So again, I don't know what career I want to pursue. Please have the confidence to encourage your young person to explore what they enjoy most in terms of the subject first, and they can take advantage of the support that's available from the career services. And just as I mentioned a moment ago, they do know what they want to do in terms of career. They really need to research the requirements to getting into that career. Start there, work their way back, and then make sure that they are taking the entry courses and meeting the requirements to get into that career. How to choose a college. I think I'm going to hand over to Innocent.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hannah. I'm just going to take control. So we have covered a lot of ground so far, and hopefully it's responding to some of those initial thoughts and feelings that you shared with us at the beginning, but we're going to continue. And now we're going to really think quite specifically about how your young person might go about making an informed decision as to which college they might like to go to. I am pretty sure that some of you have visited Trinity College at the recent open day. Therefore, you've had a chance to not only visit Trinity, but possibly other colleges as well. I would say that hands down, that is one of the best ways that you're going to get to know and to really make an informed choice around choosing colleges. However, things that we would also recommend and advise that you help when your young person, when they're thinking about this choice, is the subjects that different colleges will admit for. At Trinity College, we intake for 19 different subjects. So this will definitely help your young person know whether or not that college will be a choice for them. If they are applying for a course that's outside of the ones offered at the college, then without saying it means that that college isn't going to be an option for them. So that already helps them to narrow down their options. It could be that your young person is interested in going to a college that is quite small in size, therefore has a much smaller community. Similar to Trinity, I know Richard mentioned earlier, we're probably one of the smaller ones, I would say possibly the second smallest of those 30 colleges. By comparison, you've got St. John's, which is an absolutely huge college, which is only 5 minutes down the way, but they are comparatively a lot bigger. So their community and their intake of students is going to be a lot larger and a lot bigger. So it really does depend on how your young person feels as well. Location is always going to be a factor for some students. Some students want to be really centrally based, and therefore particular colleges might appeal to them more than others. It could also be that your young person wants to be as close to their department as possible, therefore kind of decreasing their travel time in the morning or to and fro lectures and seminars, and that could be one of the things that guides their thinking. It's important to note that different colleges will have different facilities. They will have some similarities, but overwhelmingly they will have slight differences in the facilities that they offer. We are now going to think a little bit about the UCAS applications. We would expect that by now your young people have started this process of writing their personal statement. Arguably, of the application process, writing their personal statement will be probably one of the most involved aspects of that application process. It involves your young person considering their academic learning journey and being able to capture that in quite a concise and thoughtful and critical way, and being able to write about that in a really short document. They have they have 4,000 characters, and that includes punctuation and spaces. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but just to give you a brief overview. And their expectation is that within that short document, that they can share with us in some level of detail why it is that they want to apply to the University of Oxford. And so the actual format of the personal statement is really helpful. It's broken up into 3 questions that make it very easy for them to focus their responses. And when we normally go into schools and work closely with your students, with your young people, and students in general, we normally recommend that when they consider writing this application, particularly thinking about Oxford and Cambridge and some of those more competitive universities, that they think about framing the actual division of writing towards 80% of it being academically focused. That's thinking about the things that they've done within their learning journey that speak directly to the subject, and then focusing on the last 20% of that on their extracurricular activities. And that's not because they're not important, it's just because in terms of thinking about Oxford and Cambridge, the academic element will be far more important and will outweigh the extracurricular activities. And if I just kind of touch very briefly on the questions that are going to be asked, it's possible that your young person might allow you to support them. I know that my daughter would not let me anywhere near this, but if you find yourself in a position that you might be able to kind of oversee some of their writing, then the questions are really straightforward. So we talked about the 80-20% division. Questions 1 and 2 will relate specifically to that 80%. So you're thinking about the academic aspects. So why do you want to study this course in this subject? What things have motivated them? What kind of current knowledge they possess that relates specifically to that subject, or interests that have enabled them to kind of deepen their understanding of that study. It could be that your young person has plans for the future that kind of directly link to that subject. That would be a really good place to include that. Again, those sub questions aren't there to kind of to suggest that you have to respond to them, but they're there to help your young person think about how they might kind of effectively respond to that first question. Question 2 is a great opportunity to think about learning again, but thinking about any things like super curricular that your young person might have done. So it says, how have your qualifications and studies helped you to prepare for this course or subject? The likelihood is for some of the courses that your young people may be applying to, they may not have necessarily had any first-hand experience or qualifications in them, but they may have done some form of supercurricular learning that will have heightened their understanding, deepened their kind of knowledge in that respective subject. When I say supercurricular, I'm talking about any form of learning that's directly related to the subject or course they are applying to, that your young person has done for themselves outside of school. So that means if they're interested in history, that they come home from school and they are either maybe watching a short video, they might watch a documentary, they might read a journal, maybe they've visited somewhere and that's helped them to really elaborate on their learning journey that's kind of been completely independent of school. And so that's what we call supercurricular learning. That included in a document like a personal statement is really valuable. It becomes evidence of their enthusiasm, of their kind of engagement with the study beyond the remit of the classroom. So we always encourage students as early as possible to make sure, wherever possible, that they're engaging with supercurricular learning. And then question 3, what else have you done to prepare outside of education and why are these experiences useful? So absolutely, we're thinking here about any extracurricular learning, and it could be that your young person does some work experience or perhaps some volunteering, which doesn't necessarily lend directly to the subject, but has some really fantastic transferable skills. And this would be a great place to talk about those in part and to just perhaps articulate how it is that those different kind of interactions have helped to kind of further them in terms of being an independent person, whether it's managing time more effectively and competing demands. That would be a really wonderful place for them to share that. Okay. I will just very briefly touch on this and then we're going to move on from here. But the personal statement is just your young person's chance to demonstrate why they should be, I guess, why they are the best person for that course and to show their commitment, their enthusiasm and their motivation for that respective study. Keeping in mind that there are going to be thousands of people vying for that space and actually they are excellent candidates. So this is their chance to really speak loudly and clearly about why they are the really the best student for that respective space. There is so much guidance available online to support them. We have recently had a personal workshop, statement workshop as well. I would encourage you to have a look online and use those resources to help you support them further. But at a glance, that's kind of what the personal statement is. Richard, I think I'm coming to you now.
Yeah, very happy to have a look at admissions tests. We're going to go quite quickly, but we can cover all that we need to cover meaningfully. Essentially, Hannah, would you like to take control with admissions test? I know you were scheduled to.
That's all right. We're all working to a new plan. I'll just very quickly just say to parents the best thing that you can do in terms of support for personal statements is just simply offering to read and then ask questions about the content of that statement, giving the young person space and time to redraft. Really valuable. And again, just to remind you, we don't actually use the personal statement to make offer decisions at the University of Oxford. That's quite a big difference compared to other universities. So whilst we recommend that they do spend a good chunk of time, it is probably more important for them to prepare for admissions tests and the academic interview. So making sure that they don't leave themselves short of time, because we do not use the personal statement to make admissions decisions at Oxford. Rather, we would probably use it as a starting point in interview. I think Innocent talked about this on Monday, that if we get the personal statement out at interview, it really is just going to be a way of helping settle the young person. We may be talking about some of their subject interests, but then we'll very quickly move on from that because we're not going to use it because we've already invited them to interview and they've had that chance to sit an admissions test. Most of our courses require applicants to take an admissions test at the University of Oxford. Everyone who applies for a subject sits the same test. So it's a really important piece of information to help us really choose between all the candidates that are excellent that apply to the university. And we know that results in the test are supported by practice and preparation. Our website has downloadable papers. They do not need to invest in any extra tuition. Certainly don't be tempted to pay for tuition or support with this. Everything that a young person needs to prepare for their application to the University of Oxford is on our website. All the past papers, and it really is the best place and way to prepare. check out the resources via this hyperlink. You can get that on the slides when we send them to you after this session. There's also additional information for some tests, such as syllabus information on how to approach those questions. For Oxford AIM test, students can register free of charge with Pearson's between the 21st and the 27th of October. That's when they're going to be sitting them. And just to note, there's no history admissions test this year, though we've had that in previous years if you're familiar with the tests at Oxford. Date booking opens, it's already open, so students, if your young people are applying this year, they can start booking their admissions tests now up until the 19th of September. Slightly different arrangements for medicine and law. So hopefully you can go online, have a little look at those, because those students need to have sat the law test by the 15th of September. And there are slightly different arrangements for medicine as well. If there is a test for the course, make sure that your young person has the time to put aside and practice the past papers. Just as you're helping them read through their personal statement, they need space and time to have a go at those past papers, as it can help result. The web guidance designed to support students independently of schools and parents. We're not expecting you to be able to help them with the nitty-gritty of that statement or their admissions test. Again, simply giving space and time to practice at home is really useful, even if you don't understand the content. We talked about this on Monday. Tea and biscuits. That's all that they're going to need from you. Let them explain questions to you. You'll need big ears. So it's just to help them explain what they're thinking. Richard, I think I'm going to hand over to you for written work.
Yes, the written work is basically it's an admin decision, really, quite frankly, for students who are applying to us. Essentially, students are asked to submit some written work as part of their application. This is only in some courses. Many courses it's not the case, it's required. In early November, they have to decide on a piece of written work, or maybe two pieces. They're asked to confirm that it's written work that's been done anyway in the course of their normal studies, rather than for the purpose of submitting to Oxford. Similarly, teachers are also asked to sign off on that. So it's having a look at how the student works, having a look at how she's been assessed. It isn't intended to be perfect. It's sort of meant to be sort of demonstrative of the sort of work that she typically enjoys at school and how she approaches that work. I'm going to hand back to Hannah now for interviews.
Thank you very much. Sorry, just flicking between screens. There are lots of myths about the Oxford interview, but really they're just academic conversations about the chosen subject, very much like the short tutorial. So what we're looking for here really is somebody who fits with the way that we teach. We're also looking for academic ability and potential, self-motivation, that ability to think independently, and engagement with new ideas. See that big arrow there? It says especially these two. That is what we are really looking for. Young people who can engage with questions that they are unfamiliar with, and engage with new themes and ideas that maybe they haven't encountered before, and that they can demonstrate their ability to think critically and to manage difficult challenges, difficult questions, and explain their thinking. We hope that actually they are a relatively informal experience. They really only last for around about 20-25 minutes. They all happen online in December. But essentially, what can you do to help? Well, interviews do require practice talking about the subject, and they need to talk about or have practice to talk about the subject they're applying to in detail, out loud. These conversations should be academic in nature. They really are about solving problems within the context of their own subject. We're not interested in how well dressed someone is, whether they make eye contact, and whether they can speak confidently. Many of our students and academics are not confident people, and they're definitely not great public speakers. So that's not what we're looking for. We're really looking for them to be able to talk through problems. Encourage your young person to talk through a particular problem that they're trying to solve, or a question they're attempting to answer. like I say, you're going to need big ears. You might not understand everything that they're doing, but it's really helpful if they can explain a difficult idea to you in a way that you've got half a chance of understanding, because then that demonstrates they are explaining their thinking quite clearly. Ask them questions that encourage them to explain how they're solving the problem. So if they are explaining a concept to you, or maybe a maths problem, ask them to explain the steps that they're going through. You might not understand the concepts entirely, but it will really help them practice explaining and verbalizing their thinking skills, because that's what we're assessing at interview, and that's going to be really, really vital. Again, hyperlinked here are our interview demos, all sorts of examples that you can have a little look at. On the reminder email that I sent you, I think earlier this evening, you should be able to have a little look at those, and I'll certainly add them to the email that I send you with these slides afterwards. So decisions in context then. We never make offers just on the basis of one element of the application process. And in that sense then, even if the interview comes last, we are definitely not making an offer based on interview performance alone. We take into account all of the information we have about your young person when they've applied to us. Even after the interview, we would go back to the rest of their application and have a little look at everything else. We would look again at their contextual data. By that means the school that they went to, whether they were in receipt of free school meals or any other extenuating circumstances that we might need to consider when understanding their application. We'd look at the admissions test result again. We'd obviously look at the academic record. The personal statement, not so much, but it is part of the looking a little bit at the match of the student, that they've got that passion. Interview performance, how well did they engage with some of the challenging questions? We'd look at the written work and we'd score that, and the teacher reference would help us to understand some of those extenuating circumstances if they haven't already come into us. So on balance, then we would rank students from the most competitive, and it does mean that students who haven't done terribly well at interview might still go on to get an offer. And it might mean that somebody who's actually done a really good interview, but because some other element was quite weak in their application or not as competitive as others, they may not go on to get an offer. And of course, we always have far more talented candidates than places available. So I think Innocent was talking about this earlier, that if your young person is in a position to apply to the University of Oxford, that in and of itself is a real achievement. The students that apply to us are some of the country's top performing young people. They're getting the top grades, and they have already achieved so much. Richard, I can't remember if I'm handing over to you because I've lost our plan, but I wonder if you can talk us through Opportunity Oxford.
Absolutely. I'm going to go quite briefly here. I just want to check, Hannah, could you just confirm the correct slide Opportunity Oxford showing there, or Innocent? Can you see that? Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Opportunity Oxford is a particular offer made to students who've been successful in the offer process. Everything is identical to a normal offer, but with Opportunity Oxford, an extra opportunity, hence the name, comes in, and before a student joins us at the university, they are given extra academic support. They come to Oxford a little bit earlier and basically do a little bit of academic skills-based induction. That is a process you don't apply for separately. You're given an offer in the standard process, and you're notified after you've been made an offer that it's an Opportunity Oxford offer. Really common in the Slido questions tonight, how can you prepare for a university application? Very straightforwardly, we would say simply super curricular enrichment. What we mean by that in normal English is essentially any learning you do beyond the curriculum. And there's all sorts of resources that we're very happy to share and do share with students. It doesn't just mean books and journals, challenging as they can be, all sorts of web-related resources like TED Talks, MOOCs, great television programs as well. That's something as well that's eminently something you can discuss as well with your young person, perhaps, if they're interested in sharing that with you. And as I say, we have all sorts of menus that we do provide with students where they can find portals to a lot more of these resources that really help with personal statements as well. Hannah, would you like to talk about Unique?
Oh, yes, indeed. If you are, so let me just skip on. I need to sync. There we go. Unique is a University of Oxford access programme. It's a residential programme for young people from state schools to receive sustained online mentoring. It's also got a residential opportunity for year 12s in the summer. So if your young person is in year 11, they may consider this next year. It's a chance to be supported to experience life at Oxford, to get some academic taster sessions, and to be really supported to submit an application that's going to be competitive and stand up. And it is for students who are from the most disadvantaged backgrounds. Applications open in September. And if you follow us on Twitter or Instagram or sign up for the newsletter, you'll be able to get alerts for those when the applications open in December. Other programmes target Oxbridge for year 12s and year 10s that aim to help Black African and Caribbean students from of mixed race or Black African and Caribbean heritage increase their chances of going to the University of Oxford or Cambridge. Again, this includes a residential in Oxford. Applications open at the end of December. So if your young person is currently in year 11 going into year 12, they might be able to apply for that then. Okay, I think I am going to stop there because we've only just got a couple of minutes left to invite our current students to come away from Slido. I know we've all been busy over there this evening trying to answer questions and flip between screens and trying not to lose our place. So well done to us for just about staying on task. I wonder if I can ask Morgan, Isla and Kelly to pop their cameras on. And if I come to Isla, I wonder if I can just put to you an FAQ and say, what's your experience at the University of Oxford like, and what kind of support did you get from your parents to apply, if any?
Yeah, so for the first question, my experience so far has been really good. So like some of my friends are graduating this year and I can't believe that they're going after 3 years. I've still got another 3 years left and I'm very happy to be hanging around. So it's been really good so far. In terms of like support from parents applying, I guess they kind of just like checked in on like how each stage was going. So when you like after the personal statement was due, like, you know, reading over my personal statement, just like editing like grammar and stuff like that. It's always helpful to get a second pair of eyes on that. And yeah, and then just, you know, just like checking in after each stage, like the admissions tests, the interviews and that kind of thing, just kind of like having some awareness of what was being done at what time. But they were quite hands off, I'd say.
Good, and I think that our parents here should be encouraged by that. Sometimes we think we're not doing enough, and we can over meddle. Maybe I'm just talking about myself here. In essence, you are going to be doing enough. I wonder, Morgan, if I can come to you. What was the most challenging part of the Oxford admissions process, and how did your parents support you through that, if they did at all?
For me personally, I found the interview, like, and the preparation for the interview to be really quite stressful and challenging. I'd had a few like mock interviews within my school, but I was still quite nervous, I think. But my parents, especially like in a couple of days before, they really helped to kind of reassure me, helped to like calm me down a little bit, and practiced like some like practice questions with me, and just kind of helping me to relax a little bit and talk through everything and make sure that I had answers for things that I was expecting, and then asking me different kind of, I don't know, helping me to think about it more than just like preparing for questions. They'd ask me new things, and they basically just helped to try and settle my nerves a little bit and made sure that I was like slept well, ate well beforehand, and that I wasn't getting myself worked up and too stressed, because that, I think, you need to be calm for those kinds of things to be able to think well. But
brilliant, great. I'm going to come quickly to Kelly. Kelly, final word for you.
Yes, I think my experience with parental support was quite similar with Isla's, in that because my parents weren't completely aware of the subject I was applying for. I do classics and English for context. But they knew this was very important to me. And so they sort of just provided, like on the day of the interview, they sort of made sure that the house was almost like cleared out so I could have like my own like space to sort of to do the interview. And they were just very supportive throughout, even though they're not completely sure what I was applying for. So I think in general, it's just this idea of like believing in your kid, and I feel like that was quite important to me. The fact that my mum sort of was always confident that um I could do what I wanted to do, basically, but also she didn't put a lot of pressure on me either. So it's a sort of very sort of like almost like chill attitude towards it that really helped me a lot, I think.
Great, thank you. And I am just going to pick up this question in the chat. Would there be any advantage when applying to Oxford if you were part of Unique or the BTCR, which is Beyond the Classroom? Only insofar as you are going to have developed more skills in terms of thinking critically about your subject. Unique helps really prepare students, give them the opportunity to practice the tutorial style teaching and learning, and helps them think about preparation for their admissions tests and just build their knowledge and understanding and passion for their subject. So you don't automatically get an advantage, i.e. we don't see that you've gone to Unique and think, oh, we're going to give you an offer. Actually, it's about helping you develop your skills that make your application more competitive. We know that students who've been to Unique, actually, I think it's around about a 40% success rate for Unique students, compared to a cross subject average of 20% for all other subjects. So we know that that they are developing the kinds of skills that seeing them succeed. Okay. Yes. Oh, lovely. That was very nice feedback there, Mrs. Powell. That's brilliant. I am going to end there. It is just after 7 o'clock, so we're a little bit over time. I'd just like to say thank you to all you parents who have joined us on blimey hottest evening of the year, surely, right at the end of term there. I know that that young people are feeling a bit miserable because they're still in the classroom on a hot day like this, and we're all just eking ourselves, limping along to the end. So thank you so much. I'd also like to just reassure every parent that has joined tonight, just by virtue of being here, you have demonstrated a wonderful level of commitment and support for your young people. And I know that they are going to go on to do absolutely brilliant things. Congratulations, well done for getting them this far. Well done, and just we're really grateful to you and all the support that you put in for your young people to applying to Oxford. We know they can't really do it without you, and everything you do for them, we're really grateful for too. So thank you so much. Please look out for the email that comes just after this session. We'll attach the slides. I'll pop in some links there. You can have a little look at our virtual open day. Just got to get a plug in there because we only just launched that. Do go and have a little look. Loads of videos about life at Trinity College, and do have a look at our YouTube channel as well, because it really does explain what life is like at an Oxford college. Take a look at the web links, and just know, be confident, everything that your young person needs is on our website. So even if all that you say is go to the Oxford website, you have done a fantastic job for them. Thank you so much for our current students. You've also joined us on a hot evening during your vacation period. Very grateful to you, being busy over on Slido. And thank you, Innocent. Thank you, Richard. We're all joining from our homes this evening, and we hope that you've all got time to go and have an ice lolly, a chilled glass of something just to cool down, and hope you get to the end of term. Good night, everybody.